Welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We are your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Today is May 1st, so we had originally brought you a wonderful 3-part series. We brought you the first part and the second part, and then part 3 never came, and everybody says, what happened to part 3?
Of a constitutional money series.
And so this may get long enough for 4 parts, we're not sure. So stick around, grab some popcorn, grab a soda, some coffee, tea, whatever you gotta do. Stick with us because this is information you need.
Exactly. So in parts 1 and 2, we discussed constitutional money and kind of the origins of the Federal Reserve. And if you haven't seen those, please take the moment to watch them, especially the one on Woodrow Wilson, because then you'll find out just who was behind the creation of the Federal Reserve and the income tax, which actually went like this hand in hand. If you didn't have the income tax, you couldn't have the Federal Reserve. And with the Federal Reserve, you needed an income tax in order to have a reason to be able to print all this money.
Sure.
So wanted to just catch you real quick with this clip of Alan Greenspan. And if this doesn't catch you,
I don't know what will.
Nothing else will. You can just go, plant flowers or something.
I apply it. I have the ideology because I believe that it is the best way of coming at the world and what type of policy.
What is the proper relationship, what should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take. So long as that which can overrule no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take.
And as you know what's so funny about that,
even the Supreme Court can overrule the president. You can.
There is no branch of the government. Okay, there's actually no branch of anything. There is nothing in our United States that is above everything else. That's what makes us we are so interconnected and interdependent, so that nothing can be above anything else.
In the triangle of government, you have the executive, the legislative, and the judicial, and then over here in its own universe is the Federal Reserve.
And it's on top.
It's not just on top of us, of our government, of us. It's on top of the world. Yeah.
So long as that is in place and there is no evidence that the administration or the Congress or anybody else is requesting that we do things other than what we think is the appropriate thing, then what the relationships are don't frankly matter. And I've had very...
Pretty much that just means so long as they leave us alone, we leave them alone, and we rule the world, and everything's hunky-dory.
Basically, just spelled it out in 1 minute, the whole thing. The Federal Reserve rules the world.
Leah and I always say, when the devil comes at you with horns and a pitchfork, you have no excuse.
Bingo. Okay, so the Federal Reserve rules the world, and where do we go from here?
And they're untouchable.
Exactly. Well, we have heard Congressman Thomas Massey and Senator Rand Paul are working on auditing the Fed under Trump. It was supposed to be, and hopefully still pray to God, that an audit can still happen. However, they don't really want it to happen, and you know why, because they don't want anybody... Did you hear what he said? The way we feel. What we feel the world should go.
The way we feel things should be
run. If that doesn't tell you the elitists, you know, there are people on the Federal Reserve Board, like the New York Stock Exchange, the president of Chobani.
Who's from Turkey and is not American.
No. And he's not Christian either. Not that he has to be one, but he has a religion. Anyways.
He's on the Federal Reserve Board in New York.
In New York. So the big business is what I'm trying to say runs your whole life. This isn't just a bunch of nice hippie people who are like, we're just going to make sure the world runs on just perfectly. No. This is to make sure that big businesses they keep lining their pockets. Okay.
Y'all are okay with the fact that you get those 0% interest rate credit cards coming in the mail, and your interest rates on your home loan and your car loans stay real small, but you're not quite okay when you walk into the store and the price of beef has gone up triple.
They're real happy
and that's their fault. It's called inflation.
The 0% because it's just fake money to them anyways.
Exactly.
It says this morning that Fed officials purposely declined to consult with other federal financial regulators in one email.
He The way he talks, sometimes hard to understand him, kind of like us maybe sometimes. He says that the Federal Reserve does not want to communicate with other federal agencies.
Expressed concern that an SEC employee, quote, knows something is up. The Wall Street Journal reported that you and Mr. Paulson attended 2 weekly meetings of the Financial Stability Oversight Board and refused or declined to disclose the seriousness of the problems that were being faced by the Bank of America and Merrill Lynch at that time. What would you say to the majority of this Congress who has now co-sponsored the bill to require audits of the Federal Reserve? Do you feel that the Federal Reserve is operating with too much secrecy and
Yes.
too much?
I'm a secret organization. You come and ask me, do I think I'm operating with too much secrecy?
Who's
I'm
gonna
going
say
to say no,
yes to that?
No.
We're keeping no secrets.
No secrets here.
No secrets here.
No, pay
Go
no
away.
attention to the man behind the screen.
We're all fine here.
We're all fine here.
refusal
Everyone's
to
fine.
disclose information that you have to other federal banking regulators.
The
Right.
Federal Reserve has made enormous strides in the last year under my chairmanship to expand the information that we release. We release monthly information on all the various programs that we have. We
Expand like a rock.
We've developed a website and a monthly report that involves all kinds of information. We think
All kinds of information. A monthly report.
we are quite transparent. We are happy to work with Congress if they have further concerns about any of our programs. We're more than happy to work with you to make sure that you're comfortable, that they are well managed and are
Keep you at
serving a public
peace.
purpose.
Do you think it would cause problems for the Fed or for the economy if that legislation was to pass?
My concern about the legislation is that
If we audit the Fed, would it cause something bad to happen?
the GAO is auditing not only the operational aspects of our programs and the details of the programs, but is making judgments about our policy decisions that would effectively be a takeover of monetary policy by the Congress, a repudiation of the independence of the Federal Reserve, which would be highly destructive to the stability of the financial system, the dollar, and our national economic.
Oh no, you didn't!
Now, a lot of you people may not quite understand what is just so daggum wrong with what that dude just said. Okay? He just said, wait a minute, if they were to take back and take control and to
Exercise the Constitution, which
change
says
our
Congress-
policies, and we would cease to be independent,
I'm
and you guys would
hard-headed.
control the monetary system like is constitutionally constitutional, then that would be bad, and the dollar could collapse because we've been cheating the American people, and if they find out that we're cheating them, everything's gonna crumble.
Yeah.
It's gonna crumble, and
Yeah.
we gonna find out, and that's what's gonna happen.
We're ready for it. We have been bracing ourselves. I got a stock of weed upstairs, okay? Because I know you've been cheating.
Hang on, though, because you speak country, and they may have heard weed instead of wheat.
It's at the
W-H-E-A-T.
end of the world. Everybody just wants to get high.
Now, at the end of the world, y'all gonna be wanting bread.
Yep.
You know, we actually used to be used as a monetary trading
History.
avenue.
History.
There you go.
Anyways, in case you didn't know, the Constitution gives Congress the right to coin
Congress and Congress only.
and print money. And so I'm going to play.
If you've been given the right to do something and you only, and then you go and give it to somebody else, then you didn't have the right to do that.
I'm going to play this.
That's right.
What he says one more time because it's really important.
And creepy.
Scary.
Pass.
My concern about the legislation is that if the GAO is auditing not only the operational aspects of our programs and the details of the programs, but is making judgments about our policy decisions that would
Policy
effectively be a
decisions.
takeover of monetary policy by the Congress, a repudiation of the
It would effectively be a takeover by Congress of the monetary system. Guess what?
We go back to constitutional money.
That's what we're supposed to
We go
be
back to
at.
constitutional money.
But if we go back to that,
And we wouldn't have unelected bureaucrats sitting, giant businessmen saying, this is how we're going to control all the puppets of the world.
it sounds so scary for the dollar to collapse. But guess what, guys? The dollar is fake. The dollar is the Federal
not
Reserve. The dollar isn't. The dollar bill does not
They
represent the
hold
United States.
The value.
Gold and silver that has been coined represents the United States. The dollar bill represents a private entity that is called the Federal Reserve. And guess what? They played their last card in their hand. They shot all of their chances. They lost. They lose. Yes, the American people are going to suffer because we bought into it and we went along with the lies. But when the dollar collapses, the Federal Reserve collapses, and the Congress now has the rightful power to control the monetary system. Ever since Congress gave that power away to the Federal Reserve, we have been we've been shanghaied and taken for a ride. Carry on.
The independence of the Federal Reserve, which would be highly destructive to the stability of the financial system, the dollar, and our national economic situation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Somebody, see, I wouldn't make a very good congressman because I would just be, be red, just,
I would have ended that with thank you. I would have said, and that's what we're going for.
He would have been nice about it. That's cool. I would have just been angry and just spit
Well, you
all
see
over the
Leah,
place.
she throws stuff all the time.
Yeah.
She would have thrown a pen at the guy.
If you're with us so far, there's more. So
Our Bernie viewers should really like this part.
Exactly. I've watched this clip several times, and when the bank bailouts happened in 2008, everybody wanted to know where the money went. And this segment, part 3, is kind of about constitutional money and exposing the Federal Reserve, and also 2008 and the bailouts and the collapse there. So we're going to go straight to Bernie here.
We have spent a lot of time in Congress talking about the $700 billion TARP bailout, which I voted against as it happens. Not a whole lot has been talked about with regard to the $2.2 trillion that the Fed has lent out. Now, I find it absolutely extraordinary that I wrote you a letter and I said, hey, who'd you lend the money to? What were the terms of those loans? How can my constituents in Vermont get some of that money? Who makes the decisions? Do you guys sit around in a room? Do you make it? Are there conflicts of interest? So my question to you is, will you tell the American people to whom you lent $2.2 trillion of their dollars? Will you tell us who got that money and what the terms are of those agreements?
We explain each of our programs. In terms of the terms, we explain the terms exactly. We explain what the collateral requirements are. We explain what.
To whom did you explain that?
It's on our website.
Yeah, okay.
So all that information is available in our commercial paper program.
And who got the money?
Hundreds and hundreds of banks. Any bank that has access to the U.S. Federal Reserve's
Will you
discount.
tell us who they are?
No, because the reason that is counterproductive and will destroy the value of the program is that banks will not come to the business.
Isn't that too bad?
Sorry.
In other words, isn't that too bad? They took the money, but they don't want to be public about the fact that they received it. We heard a whole lot about AIG. They're on the front pages.
These are very.
Now, I got banks and I have businesses in the state of Vermont who are in a lot of trouble. Not banks. Our banks, by the way, are doing pretty well. Now, how do these guys who are honest business people get it? Do you have to be a large, greedy, reckless financial institution to apply for these monies?
There is no subsidy, there is no capital involved, there is no gift involved. It is a collateralized, short-term liquid loan that is both over-collateralized and is recourse to the company itself. We have never lost a penny doing it.
And how can other institutions
They had never done a $700 million bailout before, by the way.
get those loans as well?
According to the law, we are supposed to be lending to depository institutions.
Now, let me just say this, Mr. Chairman. I have a hard time understanding how you have put $2.2 trillion at risk without making those names available, those institutions public. And we're going to introduce legislation today, by the way, to demand that you do that.
And actually, I'm going to show you a list. Okay, so I'm taking you to this publication, and it's all kind of a mixed match of, it's a card game of numbers, but we're going to go ahead and give you some of them so you get an idea.
They're very eye-opening, even if the numbers that they're releasing are not actually truthful.
Right.
They're kind of truthful, and so we can see a little bit in that.
Exactly. The numbers were way higher.
So actually, 972 recipients received money. So they're saying that they have made money only. They're saying that they made $84 billion.
Exactly, but they're saying that they made money, so it's okay, but it's not true, because I'm going to show you how they used Fed money to pay back the Fed. That doesn't work that way.
So they make up money to lend it, and then they make up money to say that they're paying it back.
And then the way that they're making money off of the bank's money is fake too, so it's all fake.
So this is what happens when you get a credit card, and you rack it up, and then you get another credit card to pay it off.
Exactly.
You never actually paid that money, and especially when this credit card is the Federal Reserve and this credit card is the Federal Reserve. There's actually a reason why all banks will not allow you to do like a funds transfer, like let's say Citibank. If you have a credit card out with Citibank, you can't do like they say, oh, you want to transfer funds or something like that. You can't transfer funds from a Citibank to another Citibank because then you're paying Citibank. Right. And this is what they did.
Right.
They're not supposed to do that.
Exactly. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a couple numbers here on General Motors. They're actually making a profit now, but they're in the hole $11 billion still from 2008. Okay,
which does not make any sense to me.
Chrysler is still in the hole, $1 billion. There's loan services that are still in the hole for like $3.5 billion, millions of dollars. You've got JP Morgan Chase subsidiaries are still in the hole for millions of dollars. Bank of America subsidies still in the hole. And so I'm going to go ahead and you guys, I'm going to link this to you. You can see there's still banks in the hole, but they're making money every day. Okay, so it doesn't, it boggles my mind that all these different banks and companies haven't been able to, quote, pay this back. And I'm going to show you an article here where it says, banks repaid Fed bailout with other Fed government, Fed money. Though lots of people grumble about the government bailing out banks in the financial crisis, we have at least taken some comfort in the idea that the government has turned a profit on that bailout. The only problem is that profit comes from taxpayer money. So no, you didn't make any profit. Money that was meant to spur banks to develop communities and help small businesses, instead they've used it to develop and help themselves. All told, including dividend, interest, and other payments, U.S. banks have repaid the government $211 billion under the capital, blah, 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 okay? And it says that they've made some profits, right? But 48% of the banks that have repaid the CPP used money they'd gotten from other federal programs. It doesn't work this way. It doesn't work this way. Your parents, you go to your parents, right? You say, hey, can I have $100? They give you $100. You're gonna pay that back? Yeah, can I have $100? Oh great, here's your money back. Oh great, I'm so glad that you paid me back.
So guess what? Now the parents are like just perpetuating this cycle of always being out $100.
So, but what gets me is this little tick here. They were using the Small Business Lending Fund. So, to create, and they were supposed to be able to use this money, and I'm not for a bunch of federal fake money, but the fact that they took from the little guy, the small businesses, to pay their own fat checks is just mind-boggling, and it hurts my head. It says small businesses have continued to struggle to get credit, and if you know a little bit about history, you know that farmers were pushed off their farms because there was a purposeful tightening of credit, and farmers actually used credit because a farmer would actually get all of their profit at once.
Right.
So they actually kind of lived on credit, okay, and then they would pay it at the end of the year, right? The crops come in. But the banks, they would foreclose, and a lot of their loans were callable in.
Right.
Callable at any time. And so they could just call in a loan. And the banks were this is what's called predatory banking and also predatory lending. Now, this is a really interesting visual. It's not perfect in exactly how banks work, but it's enough to make you knowledgeable and hopefully freak you out.
Let's say the United States needs money. Instead of issuing their own United States notes backed by their own credit, they issue treasury bonds. They then sell these bonds to the Federal Reserve, which buys them with money they created out of thin air. The money that the Fed created then goes to the U.S. The U.S. then pays interest on the money that the Fed lent to the Treasury. So to clarify, the Fed creates money from nothing, loans that money to the U.S., and then charges interest on that money. What this means is that there is never and will never be enough money in circulation or in existence to pay back that debt. We as a country, as well as private citizens, are forever enslaved by debt with no way of ever paying it off. Now, when the Federal Reserve buys bonds on Wall Street, the major financial firms that have been selected as dealers deposit the proceeds at their own banks. Fed rules require banks to keep 10% of their deposits in reserves, but the bank is free to issue loans equal to the remaining 90%. Let's say the Federal Reserve buys a $1,000 bond. After putting away 10% into their reserves, they are then able to loan out 90%, or $900. Since the original $1,000 is still on deposit, the $900 in loan proceeds is more new money, money created out of nothing. A total of $1,900 of new money is now available in the economy. Now the person that took the $900 loan spends that money. The payee then deposits the $900 into their bank account, and once again, reserves and deposits increase. This process goes on and on until that original $1,000 bond, which was created from nothing, becomes $10,000. Making this one full-fledged debt machine while also devaluing the dollar. The more money that is out in the economy, the more the value decreases. There's no wonder that since the implementation of the Federal Reserve in 1913, the dollar has lost over 95% of its value. The US dollar will eventually be destroyed due to an overwhelming financial crisis.
The dollar has lost over 95% of its
I don't even know why this doesn't mean anything to anybody. It's like it goes right over their head. They don't care.
Inflation.
They don't care. It is not inflation because I'm sorry, I was not supposed to yell. Because for 200 years.
We didn't have inflation. The dollar remained
over
stable.
200 years.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go back to our friend.
I feel like we actually covered that in part 2. I don't even care. Because it's worth putting in there a second time.
Well, part 2 was Woodrow Wilson, so we haven't covered it yet.
It wasn't in part 1?
No.
The distrust
I'm glad
here
then.
by
Y'all
the
didn't
American
see that.
people is as deep and severe as I've ever seen. And it does not only Congress itself, not only the administration, but the Federal Reserve is just at this point at a very low ebb as it relates to trust. And I'm not talking about you personally. You're two men of high integrity, I know that. But right now, the Federal Reserve is not held in high esteem by many people in this country. I'll yield back.
I thank the gentleman. I have a few short questions and then we'll finish up. The one thing is, on a follow-up on what Mr. Jones says, is the confidence is very low. But when you speak of independence, and I understand your terms, and I disagree with the need for that, but I understand it. But what people hear when you say independence, they hear secrecy. You know, you're going to keep it from us. And like the point I made at the beginning, the SEC is to pressure companies to reveal information, where the Federal Reserve does the opposite. They want, no, we can't tell anything because it might disturb the markets. But I do have one question. During the crisis, or any time that you're aware of, has the Federal Reserve or Treasury participated in any gold swaps arrangements?
Listen to this.
We don't, the Federal Reserve does not own any gold at all. We have not owned gold since 1934. So we have not engaged in any gold swaps.
But it appears on your balance sheet that you hold gold.
What appears on our balance sheet is gold certificates. When we turned before 1934, the Federal Reserve did own gold. We turned that over by law to the Treasury and received in return for that gold certificate.
If the Treasury...
Shiny glittery thing.
Hang on a minute, though, for those of you that don't understand. When we talk about people buying gold, a lot of people still want to deal in kind of the stock market realm-ish of owning precious metals. I think this is the most insane thing anybody could ever do, but you can actually own gold and silver and palladium, what is it?
Platinum.
No, not platinum, it's palladium, whatever. Y'all know what it is. You can have these precious metals and all you get is a certificate, but it does represent that you actually own that. So now what he's talking about is not a receipt, meaning you gave this to me and look, now, I mean, you go into the grocery store and you get a receipt. It doesn't mean anything, they got your money, okay? He's talking about gold certificates, which means technically they still own the gold, even if it's not in their possession. And so what he's saying here doesn't make any sense. It's not on our books. It is on your books. It's a commodity that you have. You're not making any sense.
It makes no sense.
Entered into, because under the Exchange Stabilization Fund, I would assume they probably have the legal authority to do it. They wouldn't be able to do it then because you have the securities for essentially all the gold?
No, we have no interest in the gold that is owned by the Treasury. We have simply an accounting document that is called gold certificates that represents the value at a statutory rate
and still
that we gave to the Treasury in 1930.
And still measured.
You didn't give it to them because you still have a certificate for it.
At $42 an ounce, which makes no sense whatsoever.
I was cold all alone. No place for